Okay, ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for joining us tonight. Tonight's topic will be eliminating the one-to-many device conundrum, or known to some as their BYOD, bring your own device initiative within their organization. Whether you're a school district, a university, perhaps you're a international school, regardless of the age of your students, you may be going down the path where you have students bringing in their own devices as a primary piece of your program or part of your program. And that's what we're going to be discussing tonight. Jamf's software solution to supporting those with BYOD programs. My name is Dave Saltmarsh. I'm Jamf Software's educational evangelist. I've been a former classroom teacher, instructional technology director, and for the last 4 years, I've had the opportunity to go around the world visiting schools using devices, whether they're computers or iPads, in everything from cart-based models to one-to-one. And I've certainly seen a great number of institutions that have implemented their own BYOD program. Now, we titled this Bring Your Own Device and One-to-Many. And the reason we say one-to-many is we're seeing a lot of institutions that may be providing devices to their students, whether it's a one-to-one or in cart-based model, but also encouraging them to bring their own personally owned devices. And that could be staff or could be students. In higher ed, we're seeing it as the use model. And in the lower grades, or K12 in the United States, or years K through 12 elsewhere, we've seen some people doing it as a transition to their one-to-one, supplementing their device usage, and also just providing that choice opportunity. But a choice with some guidance. If students are going and staff are going to bring devices into a school, there are some needs on a security side or inventory or just awareness that an institution has. And then there's the desire to still allow the individual to be the owner of their device and to keep their privacy. A lot of what we're going to talk about tonight are the differences between managing institutionally owned devices and then doing some management to personally owned. And really, the significant thing is to let the end user know what can and cannot be done with the management, or what will and what will not be done based upon them having their own personal device. Now, over the years and over the last dozen years, Jamf has been a company that has provided institutions that are using Apple-based products, solutions for management. Management with as light a touch or as significant a touch to help end users be productive in whatever area walk of life they're in, whether it's a commercial business or a higher ed institution of learning, or a school district where you've got students of all different kinds of ages using devices to harness the power of digital learning. We provide that on the Mac side significantly, and we listen to our customers as they continue to have new challenges as their programs evolve. So we've heard from our customers that whether it's by their own initiative of allowing people to asking people to bring their own, or students and staff having other devices, a big influx, or an influx anyways, of Android devices. And whether that's phones or whether that's tablets, and whether that's a significant part of their program or it's just supplemental. We are hearing from our customers that are primarily Apple using Apple devices that they still do have this need for somewhat of a mixed platform, but not so much on the heavy management side, really on that allowable use of people to have their own device. And they have this desire for a lighter touch here. So in Jamf, we provided this new ability to do bring your own device management with this lighter touch on the Mac side, on the iOS side, and on the Android side. Really, what we should be thinking about before we get too much into what we can do or what you might be able to do or what you could choose to do is, why are you doing this initiative? And if I was in a room with all of you in it right now, I'd love to take an opportunity to pause and have you think or say out loud why. One, why are you listening to this tonight or today, depending on where you are? But why have you opened your doors to the and embraced bring your own device? Or are you looking to do it? So I am going to go ahead and pause for a few seconds here. I'll look over in the chat to see if anybody wants to throw out a reason. Some of it starts with, does your organization have a BYOD policy? Back in 2008, my last school district that I worked for, we didn't. And in the mid-2000s, I would say that most educational institutions, except for higher ed, which were starting to switch to it, there was a specific disallowance of users to bring their own device. It was against the policy. It wasn't an encouragement. It was outright against it. And in my particular case, one of my schools, a high school we had, I remember an IT network administrator coming up to me, coming into my office and looking all red in the face and telling me how, he just found out and discovered that of the roughly 1,000 students in our building, and we had, about 1,100 people counting staff, there were 350 devices on our network that weren't owned by us. And I was like, wow, that's fantastic. And he, of course, was like, no, we have to stop this. And I was like, well, no, this is terrific, because of that 1,000 students, we had roughly about 500, I'd say 400 to 500 iMacs spread around our building. We had about another 100 Windows devices in some labs, specifically CAD labs and some learning labs. And we had another 200 iBooks on carts. So we didn't quite have enough for all students, but we had a significant number. But with 350 students and or staff bringing their own devices, if you mix that in, we were on our way towards providing anywhere, anytime opportunities. So the first thing we had to do was, one, adjust our policies that allowed this, but then come up with a way that we could still feel comfortable about it. So for us, it was a means to an end, to transition to one-to-one. It expanded and increased the capacity as a supplement to the overall program we were doing. We also had personal choice as a significant reason to allowing it. We had staff, I was in a district that was pretty much all Mac, but we had some staff that had their own Windows laptop. And for some, we weren't providing laptops for all staff. So for them to bring in their own Windows device and feel comfortable, we wanted to allow that. We also had students. We had special needs students that had their own devices purchased through a program. We had special ed teachers, special education teachers who had a more powerful Mac and wanted to use it on our network. So we wanted to encourage this. Certainly on the higher end side, and I was investigating this back in the mid-2000s, the higher ed institutions were embracing bring your own device as a natural evolution to their programs, where students were leaving the computer labs and had their own computers. And they were providing opportunities for students to buy devices through them. And sometimes they had a specific device for them to buy. And other times it was, bring your own, and, we do or don't provide any support. So it's, what is your plan, or what's your intent? Again, is it a means to an end? Is it a supplemental? And as the title suggested, maybe it's just that one-to-many that you want to provide for, or that supplement side. So I think we need to think about what we're trying to do. And if your program is wholeheartedly BYOD, bring your own, our solution certainly is providing the commercial world where employees are bringing their own iPhones or their own Android phones in, and the institution doesn't want to pay the same premium for management. Same kind of situation in a college university. The professors might need full management so they could get the applications and updates provided to them, but the students maybe only need access to their email, the wireless network, and such. The same situation if your BYOD is supplemental in your school, you maybe just need to get the students on a specific network easily. Plus, you want to know who's on your network. Half of my desire, or the desire within my technology department, was just to have awareness. We were tracking bandwidth usage. We were throttling bandwidth access, and we could put these personal devices on a separate network that had certain access, but then we felt more confident that they weren't necessarily hogging or draining the bandwidth for other educational activities. And it all depends on really what your intent is. If you're all in BYOD, our management system may or may not be enough for you. It may not. It may be light enough, but then again, specifically on the Mac side, you may want more aspects. And you certainly can enroll a personal device into an institution model. We just have a different pricing structure and different abilities. So let me move on, because the why in all cases still goes about what is that educational experience or the IT experience we're hoping to accomplish. And just like when my network administrator came running to me, we had institution security needs. Of course, my daughter was at my school, and I had concerns for her privacy and every other student's. And as an educator first, we want to encourage people to bring their own devices, have their own privacy, but we want to make sure that we're protected within our networks and that there's still that institutional side that is a concern to all. And scaling. We have networks that often aren't built for one-to-one. Today, hopefully people are building their wireless infrastructure beyond one-to-one and for one-to-many. And we want to be able to allow that growth and management of beyond the devices that really need all the institution software, the updates immediately and that are mission critical. Well, you may not want to pay for that same feature when you start scaling 2 or 3 devices per person. Yet you want to be able to allow that personalization. Some individuals want a device because they feel more productive. And I go to the next slide or next bullet because it brings that up. We want to not stifle individualism or productivity. Some people see ease of use because they're so comfortable using their own personal device. Maybe when they're doing a presentation, a certain student's going to feel better because it's their device and they know it so well. And specialization, keeping in mind you want to empower a user to not be limited. I mean, I might give a student an iPad Air and I believe it's amazing. But if they want to bring a MacBook in because they're using some high-powered video software, by all means, we don't want to stifle that. We want to encourage it with some guidance. And along with personal choice and those reasons I just listed off, we have the concept of equity too. And that, I would say, is why you hear me talking about it or others talk about this one-to-many. School districts and institutions are trying to provide equitable experiences. A regular BYOD, as much as it's at least a solution to provide devices in the hands, may or may not truly give each student the same potential experience. And so the programs that are supporting devices within an institution aren't left out with that need of still wanting to have a BYOD. They've chosen a solution like Casper Suite to manage their devices. But at the same time, they might want to provide out that ability for other users. So I don't want to go down a tangent too much on the equity issue, but if institutions are providing a concept of equity with, at the same time, as personal choice. We can support that. So bring your own device. It really is about the hardware that's entering your organization. And, holidays are upon us. All year round, new devices are bought by users, and it's brought in. Can you support that new device? Can you keep up with the technology? Well, in organizations that have a 2 to 3 year rollover, or in some of my devices were 5, 6, 7, even though truly that was move them around, and that's one of the great things of an inventory system is you can identify getting the best device where it needs to be, and you can stretch out that life cycle of a device. At the same time, you've got new device types entering as people bring them in. Can you support that? Configuration, security, these are things that are on especially IT's side because they're watching out for the overall well-being and legality of things within an institution. And can we still ensure that rather than having rogue devices all over? And it's not just with the hardware when it's is it physically somebody else's, but it contains personal and private data that belongs to that individual, that teacher or student. And can we make sure that is in the forethoughts of what we're providing here? Because in some cases, that's going to lead to the success, the outward sharing of that being important will lead to greater adoption by students and staff. And so we are specifically talking tonight about smartphones and tablets running iOS and Android operating system. We certainly have the ability to enroll Macs that are personally owned, but the biggest thing that we're offering that's new is this smartphones or tablets rather than buying or paying for the full management suite or package, perhaps the lighter side. And what can you do with that? So there have been identified 4 significant challenges within BYODs, or bring your own devices. And it's providing that appropriate access. And we still, it's one thing to say everybody can get everything they need on web sites and Web 2.0 type activities, but there's still certain content, and particularly on the Apple ecosystem, there are still apps we want to get out to students, even if it's their own device. And securing that endpoint is one of those. Securing the endpoint is certainly an issue that is on IT side when it has institutional data that you want to get off it if a device is lost or stolen. And I guess it's kind of repeating it, different kinds of ways of saying preserving that user privacy. And I've alluded to it, but it's really that adoption of the user. If you're an institution of higher learning, a higher ed institution, if they're a commercial, I know I'm talking to the education side in this webinar, but on the commercial side, getting people to opt into that bring your own device really goes back to these first 3 points that lead to greater adoption. And if you're trying to encourage students to bring in their own device, we want to make sure we hit those first 3 really well. And, providing that appropriate access, is about getting someone with very little physical touch. And this is the thing. Back in the 2000s and 1990s, when we did allow someone to bring their own device in, they had to bring it into the IT department. They had to set it down in front of somebody, and we'd go through it and make sure they had antivirus loaded on it. Things were set up a certain way, and then in the 2000s, if somebody brought a device in, we'd put the Wi-Fi in it for them so that they wouldn't know the password at first before we had systems that could do that. Registration systems we tried just were cumbersome. There had to be someone around to help. Now, if we can get someone their internet access with no touch, get them set up with their email, their calendaring, their contacts, and particularly with staff, if they want to get connected to a virtual private network so that they can get certain things that you can't get unless you're on that, can we get that with a low physical touch by IT? Get it done for them simply, less hands-on. And, the Apple ecosystem is still available to people on their personal devices. Well, it's still the reason why people are going down this path is significantly anyways, is because of the types of apps that you can do on an iPad or an iPhone, or even on a Mac, that you just can't do on other devices. And so if you've built a program around iTunes U, there are one-to-many programs where they said, fine, bring another device in. We understand we're giving out iPad 2s or iPad 4s. You have an iPad Air or the brand new iPad Air. We still want to be able to get students the access to that teacher's iTunes U account. We still want them to be able to seamlessly move their keynote presentation from their school desktop or school machine to their device, if you're using that model. And with that, we still have the ability to take advantage of the volume purchase program. And thankfully, it's expanded. It may not have expanded to everywhere that my voice is reaching, but it has significantly expanded. So we can still allow someone with their personal device to take part in the volume purchase program, where you're able to distribute to students and get apps to them. And interesting that animation kind of jumped ahead on me. But the idea that you can get apps out to students, distribute them, and if they're bought by the school, the institution, you can take them back once that student leaves, even if it's on their personal device. Retaining ownership. Again, students may have more than one device that they're using, and that allows for that ability without sacrificing the ecosystem. And the second piece, the securing the endpoint, naturally, it's something that, wanting the ability to ensure that students think about passcodes. In today's world where students have their email, their personal accounts, whether it's Facebook or whatever social media sites, but then they have their access to their SharePoint sites in school or all of their learning management systems, it'd be great to say that everybody's going to take that ownership on, but if we can enforce that, and we can, if needed, we can take care of those security vulnerabilities because of having some back-end abilities to remove institutionally owned information, then you're more likely to see a BYOD program be accepted, not just by the students and staff, but by the IT administrators who are responsible for ensuring that those security concerns are taken care of. So preserving user privacy, letting users and then IT knowing what can be and can't be done. IT admin can, apply configurations for access, getting you to your Wi-Fi. They can, enforce you to put a 4-digit passcode. They have the ability to lock out the device if they end up saying it gets lost or stolen, and wipe off the corporate data. But they're not going to be able to get an inventory what apps you have on there that are yours. So, if you're a student and your parents are okay with you installing Angry Birds and it's your personal device, the school institution isn't going to necessarily see that. And whether they want to or not, it's a personal device, and that's the trade-off. Now, and deleting personal data is probably one of the biggest concerns you hear from people. Some organizations doing mobile device management do these containerizations, this separate, it's a container concept. Really, with the Apple ecosystem, the way the iOS has evolved, we don't need to worry about that so much. We have the ability to only be able to touch the institutional apps that have been provided by the institution and know that you can't get in and touch the other apps that were not provided by them. So we're not going to restrict app usage to the personal apps. And we cannot fully wipe. We're not going to fully wipe off everything on someone's device, without them knowing or knowing. So it really did come down to that idea of making sure you can gain the trust of the end user so you can increase adoption, by letting them know what they can and what can and can't be done management-wise if you go this personal route versus the institution route. What I'd like to do right now is just take a couple minutes to show you the workflow, the simplicity of an end user that has their own personal device that wants to go ahead and enroll it. Enroll it in somebody's, and we call it a Jamf software server or JSS, but the Casper Suite server. You could have a Casper Suite server that has thousands of fully managed Macs and iPads and Apple TVs and iPod Touches, and then have however many personal devices you need to have enrolled. I'm not in sales. I'm not going to get into the major in the pricing. Bottom line is they have a one price. I believe it's about $1,000. It's $1,000 for all the personal devices you want to have enrolled. You just don't have the full management ability. But this is what an end user would do, and this will show you such a light touch when it comes to what physically has to be done. So you could send an end user an email with an enrollment link, where to go ahead and click to get to a website. But in my institution at Jamf, they just gave us a URL to type in. It's jamf.it, and it automatically goes to that enrollment page. Now, as with pretty much anything else in an institution, usually you have a pretty standard user account. We can customize this to tell the person exactly what to put in, but in most cases, people have moved to the single sign-on concept or the one user account, and whatever they have for email or for SharePoints, they're going to use for this. So I did record this. I really didn't want to share out my password. This is the only reason I'm not doing a live one. This is a flow that is live with no time lapse. So here we get the choice of whether or not we want to do personally or institutionally owned. And I paused it on the institutionally owned, even though that's not what we're getting into today or really talking about. But it shows you here that list of things that can be done. The wipe all data and settings. This is if it was institution. We can remove the passcode, completely lock the device, imply institutional settings, add and remove configuration profiles, add and remove provisioning profiles, and add and remove apps and data. So we still can't remove anything that IT didn't install. We still can't track the location. And, debatable how important this is, but the personal privacy takes, is a higher level in the Apple ecosystem, and in I would say most institutions, not being able to track a device unless an end user is involved. Now, go to schools where somebody loses their device and the student goes to the IT and then they apply Find My iPad, and it works great. But having the student involved is the important piece. So let me go into the personally owned tab. And while this can be modified, what they can and can't do can't be. But they could add some, go back into here. They certainly could add some text just to, change the wording, especially if it's younger students or whatever. They could change the way this is expressed. But what can I do? I can lock the device. I can apply institution settings, and I can install and remove institutional apps on the iOS side, and institution data. Again, not tracking your location, not removing anything that they did not install or IT did not install. So I know I've repeated that, but I think this communication, although you could kind of skip through this, is important for that end user. And I would point this out to the people if you could. And they're tapping enroll. And there are a few places where it does have them double check what they're doing, but it's not a technical thing. So they press continue, they come up here and they tapping install. You're seeing some of the things that are installing. and I had a passcode on the device, so I had to put a passcode to let it happen. So, do you really want to install? Yes. I can open it up so you can see a little bit more detail as we go. I think I do. But really, it's just again, non-technical, following through some workflows of saying yes and install. They're letting you know that you're going to have remote management. And we're installing the MDM profile. So you're attached to the institution's Jamf software server. Now, if I go back into the device, under the General tab, you can get in, and I had to put a passcode in because it did require me. I can go back in now and see more detail of what actually happened. And you'll see that in addition to being enrolled, I was gained VPN access. I was given Wi-Fi to a couple different Wi-Fi networks. I got some certificates, stuff that I wouldn't know as an end user, basically giving the authority for some of this to happen. Mostly, I got my email and I got my Wi-Fi. As an end user, yes, I have to have a passcode because that was forced. I got my Office 365 set up for me. And I'm on my way as an end user. So not a lot of effort on their part whatsoever. What I'd like to take just a short excursion into our Jamf software server. Now, I like to pride myself of having some technical ability, but really the reason I want to show this here is that there isn't too much to getting it going. Now, setting up the email profiles, setting up setting up a passcode profile, certainly pretty straightforward. Even setting up a Wi-Fi passcode's pretty straightforward. To do the email, you have to have some information. But rather than going through that, and we do have this in other videos, we have workshops to teach people how to do that. In most part, that IT task is handled by someone who's gotten some training. Really, I just want to show you where we would go to get this done. And I need to jump forward a little bit on my video that I have here because there's some stuff you just didn't need to see. Excuse me for a moment. So and this will be recorded on our website. So I'm going up to my global management in the tab to the left. Basically, if you go under computers, and the new area that you're going to see if you've been in the system before, if you haven't, don't worry, you'll get training when you get set up with the Jamf software. But you'll see that we have the VPP account, we have the device enrollment program, which I am very happy. The last time I was in Asia Pacific area, last June, we did not have device enrollment program, and now certainly a lot more countries do have it. This ability to get your devices enrolled at purchase so that they can be supervised, and that, the part I really love the most is that, the device enrollment program eliminates the problem with device reset. One, if you reset your device, it can easily get it back up and running. And two, if you do reset your device, it's going to get tied back to the mobile device management system, so the student really can't get around that if it's institutionally. Now, that was a tangent, but notice right next to that, just to the left, is excuse me. Sometimes I do get click happy. I apologize. Right next to device enrollment program to the left is user initiated enrollment. VPP, device enrollment, user initiated enrollment. Now, I'm only really showing you where you would go. If you have a JSS now, you could go play around. Under the General tab is really what you need to get going. Do you want to do it? And sorry, I'm going to view this. This is where I said that you could actually change the language inside here in the messaging. I was pretty darn general with what I wrote. You can get in there and say, to get your personal device enrolled, you could add some more information. I put very little, didn't get into there is some stuff of EULA's site. You can break this down to sites. Are you letting this happen for iOS or Android? This is really the important piece that I'm making sure that you recognize. Now you see the tab for Android that we didn't have before. And usually the access, most people these days are basing it off, and I mentioned about user accounts, they're basing it off some system, whether it's an LDAP, a user account-based system for access. And I just really wanted to get you in here to see where these new tabs were as far as being able to select not just Mac and iOS, but also Android devices. I do want to let you know I don't have it ready for tonight. I'm in Austin, Texas, and I lent a coworker my Android tablet. We will have an enrollment how-to video within days up on our website. So if you joined us for this webinar, if you're watching it, it's the end on recording, go back in. You will find a setup video. We already have one up there for the iOS. We will have very soon for the Android tablet. I just did not get that done for tonight. So Casper Suite for BYOD is to provide appropriate access simply. Not a lot of hands-on and not a lot of or any technical know-how needed by the end user. Securing that endpoint with the native iOS and then Android technology. And very importantly, preserving user privacy always. And the end result will be greater user adoption, more supplemental devices brought into your environment that are managed, that you can have awareness of, and that will allow students and staff to be able to personalize, even mass customization of their needs. Now, at Jamf, we've listened to groups of people as they've gotten together, stakeholders, and what they want to do in school. I started off saying we listen to the why. We've heard ideas from people, and then we try to help them with that technology. Primarily, we do that on the Mac side, but we recognize and Mac institutionally, but yet there's this desire for a lighter touch. So we've come out with something. Please know that we've started this process. We're going to continue to evolve as the needs of our customers evolve. And this is a big URL, but we do have a document up on our site. You could certainly just go in and look under resources for BYOD Made Manageable. But if you go to jamfsoftware.com/get-started, and really, this adding of the personalized or the bring your own device aspect into our management just fulfills or continues that whole product experience that we want to see. We want to provide support to the end user and that community for what they're doing out there. We can provide education and services to help people get going, primarily centered around the Apple ecosystem, but certainly if they're expanding that into other areas. I mentioned to begin with, my name is Dave Saltmarsh. I'm focused solely on education. As a former teacher and IT director, I love hearing stories about how people are using our product or their interests, so feel free. You can always contact me. You can go straight to the Jamf website and get more information, chat with somebody if you'd like. And there's plenty of resources, including this video. This webinar will be posted as a video, and there'll be other webinars. There are videos already up online by our product management about this offering, more technical. I was really trying to give more an overview of what we're trying to accomplish and what this solution is, the value of the solution for education. So by all means, please jump back onto jamfsoftware.com if you want to get more detailed information. Thank you very much.